I mean, I think the sad part right now was the result tonight that stunning? I mean, it's stunning, right? Like you lose to Columbia, but from over the years, it's been trending in this direction. And I think the overarching theme here is when you hire based off of familiarity alone, that's when you really, I think, back yourself into a corner. We're in a day and age right now where you get left behind if you're trying to preserve tradition of old regimes. There's too much mobility for players nowadays, and I think that's what Villanova's I think struggled to recapture. And it reminds me, like, think about over the years with like go back to UConn. I hate to bring UConn in this early, but go back to UConn in like 2012. Calhoun leaves, Ali takes over. Ali inherits a roster of Shabazz Napier, Ryan Boatwright, DeAndre Daniels. Not only do those guys stay there because it was more restrictive to move and have mobility, they stayed there for 2 more years after that. So you had more of a core that you could build with. That's just not the case today. So I think that's part of the issue is they've kind of lost who they are. This is one of the better programs in college basketball in the 2010s without question. And they've strayed pretty far away from that. So again, the result tonight isn't surprising. And I think it's pretty early on in the season if you're Kyle Neptune to be thinking about how hot your seat is.
Matt, like what's not clicking? Because obviously, I mean, this was supposed to be continuity. It was all about continuity when Jay Wright stepped down. And I mean, even down to the players, like Mike mentioned, and even just from the jump, this has never felt like continuing any kind of tradition there at Nova. Like, what's not working for Kyle in that program?
Well, let's talk about this. Like, this is not easy to do, right? It's not easy to walk in and take over for a legend. That's why I have such great respect for what John Shire is doing at Duke, what Hubert Davis is doing at North Carolina. When these legends have walked away and guys are taking over for them, there are unbelievable expectations. And expectations are one of the hardest things to deal with in all of sports. I think the most disappointing thing with just their performance tonight is there was no fire. There was no passion. I mean, to give up 90 points to a Columbia team. And first of all, shout out Columbia, right? I mean, Jim Ingles to go in there and get a win. Let's give them credit. But to give up 90 points the way they did, there was just no fire and no passion. But it's not easy to do what he's been asked to do. And again, he's not turning down the job. He had 1 year as a head coach at Fordham. He has never gotten to 20 wins in his head coaching career yet. And it's hard. I don't want to say it because everybody's going to give me a hard time. Winning is hard. It's hard. Winning is hard. But when you take over for one of these guys and these expectations are the way they are, that's a whole nother animal that he's having to deal with. When he lays his head on the pillow at night, he knows it's Villanova. And the expectation is not to win 20 games. The expectation is to go to the Final Four, to win a Big East championship. And it's a difficult task.
John, winning is hard, no question. But is it supposed to be this hard at Villanova against Columbia? I mean, isn't that the issue, that it's hard against Columbia at home at Villanova?
I think you see Columbia on paper, Ivy League school. We're gonna walk in here and show these boys what's going on, and that's what happens. They got after him. You gave up 90 points. Villanova's had a few questionable losses over the years with Coach Neptune. Yeah. So, like we said, are we surprised? Not really, but it is shocking to lose your first game. With Poplar and Brickus, Brickus I loved at LaSalle. So, for him, I think it's going to be an adjustment as well. I thought he was a little undersized. So it's going to be an adjustment for him playing in the Big East. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes along because he will be a big part of what they have to do to win. But other than that, man, they've got to figure it out. It's a long season. They can recover from this. At least you lose now early. So everyone's going to come in a little more humble, a little more ready to listen, and hopefully get on the right track.
Yeah, I think the notable thing about the notable losses is that so many of those are regional schools, 2 regional schools, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Temple, Penn, Drexel. I mean, I don't know, Mike. How different does it hit when the losses are to schools that are in your 100-mile radius like that?
I mean, we've seen it over the years. They've gone into the Palestra and lost, and those are supposed to be games where you take care of tradition and win them. And look, I think what this is doing to the Big East Conference, right? I mean, they got 3 teams in the NCAA tournament last year. That trend has continued to go down. As 3 years ago it was 6, 2 years ago it was 5, last year it was 3, and Villanova's they've been just a foundation. It feels like in that conference, and for them to be where they're at right now, I think it hurts the whole entire conference. So, I mean, you have DePaul, you have Georgetown, you have teams that have been down there for a little while. But I think if you asked us, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, if we thought Villanova would get to this point, I don't think any of us would believe it.
Matt, last question on this before we move to some other games that went down today. In terms of, and I don't know the answer, and I don't know that anybody necessarily knows the answer in terms of internally what the administration is thinking, but what is your patience if you're Villanova? I mean, is it long? Just what's your threshold for how much you can take for a program with such tradition like Villanova?
Yeah, here's the biggest challenge for Kyle Neptune is keeping everyone focused. Okay, because look, they win 18 games last year. The year before they win 17. That's not the standard at Villanova. And they lose this game, the first game of the season. It's early. I mean, it's the first week of the season, but now here comes all the naysayers. Here comes all the noise. Here comes the hot seat that our boy Jeff Goodman loves to throw everybody on. And can everybody within that program stay focused? He's got to pull everybody together, because what happens is when all this noise starts happening, then your staff starts wondering about what's next. Your players start wondering about what's next. That's a hard thing as a head coach to manage, is when it starts to go one way, to steer this thing back to going the right way. And again, it is early, but all the noise is now starting, because there was some noise coming out of last year, missing the NCAA tournament, not getting to 20 wins. There's noise. And is he the right guy for the job? And then when you lose the first game of the season to a Columbia team that has struggled mightily in years past, now the noise is getting cranked up even more. And how does everyone else in the program react to that? That's his biggest challenge. Can he get everybody connected and on the same page? Because now he's not going to be the only one that's hearing or listening to the noise. Everybody within the program is. And if one person starts going the opposite way of what they're trying to accomplish, they have no shot.
Yeah,